Soldier on, my good countrymen. Keep fighting for your culture now. Keep fighting for your land. I know it's been thousands of years, and I feel your hurt, and I know it's wrong, and you feel you've been chained and broken and burned. And those beautiful old people, those wise old souls have been ground down for far too long by that spineless man, that greedy man, that heartless man, deceiving man, that government hand, taking blood and land, taking blood and land, and still they can. But you're dreaming, for the warrior spirit lives on, and it is so, so, so strong in the earth, in the trees, in the rocks, in the water, in your blood, in the air we breathe. Soldier on, soldier on.
Hey guys, so I had a interesting thought which I've decided to transmute into a video. At the end of my videos I have a little animation, and in there it often says you can support a child for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee back in the West, and that's referencing an event I had where I left Tanzania for the first ever time after spending a year here, and I hadn't been to any developed parts of Tanzania. I just stayed out in the bush, in the rural area. And when I got to the airport in Europe, in Amsterdam, I went to buy a takeaway chai latte. Now, when I went to buy this, I stopped and looked at the price. I'd already paid, but I said, wow, that was enough to pay for the education for 1 month for one of the children who I'm trying to help. And my approach to life changed. I wanted to do things in a more minimal way from then on. And I started saying that as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week is all it takes. And I was referencing the idea of if you're spending $3 a week on one takeaway coffee, then you don't have to do that because it's a non-utilitarian purchase, and you can actually give a child an opportunity to leave child labour and get into education. It can be done for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week back in the West, after all. So this was like a very big thing, and I've used it repetitively since then, this idea of exchanging a cup of coffee for a child's well-being. But I thought I'd look into this because it was in my mind, what exactly else could we do if we stop using only, I'm not asking everyone to stop drinking coffee, only stop buying takeaway coffee, only stop using disposable coffee cups and buying takeaway coffee. What could the world do with that? Now, at the same time, I think for this to make any sense, I should, at the beginning, point out why it is that we do drink coffee. Now, coffee's not utilitarian. Now, what I mean by that is, if you don't drink it, you're not going to die. Some people might feel like they're going to because they're addicted to the caffeine, etc., but you're actually not going to die. It's not a calorie source that's going to keep you sustained for the rest of your life. It is simply something pleasurable. But for many people who are too tired, stuck inside the way the consumerist society has developed, it's also for them, they feel it's a necessity because they need something to tell their body it's not tired when in actual fact their body is tired. The truth is what they need is sleep and rest. They don't need coffee, they need rest. But they're so used to running on empty that they're using coffee to block the signal in the body that tells you you're tired. That's what caffeine does. It doesn't give you energy, it stops your body from telling you that it's tired. So I say that only to establish that coffee is not a necessity. Now that said, it doesn't mean it's unnatural for humans to seek drugs. Animals seek drugs as well. Dolphins will play with pufferfish, not to kill them, but so as they secrete a small amount of neurotoxin, and they'll even pass it around and get high. So animals do seek pleasure and drugs in nature as well, and if you're taking pleasure from coffee, then that is a pleasure-seeking behaviour, and it's not completely unnatural. But what I want to point out is, at the point where we have a planet which is suffering and dying, what we have to do is tweak our behavior, because seeking pleasureful things, if the resources used on there could be used elsewhere with great effect, is not something we should do, and it's time for a change. Now, I'm not saying we should eradicate the coffee industry and little Johnny can no longer work as a barrister. That is not what I'm saying. But it is time for a change. So if certain industries have to take a hit and little Johnny has to find a different job, so as our children have a planet to grow up on, then little Johnny is going to have to just put up with it. Unfortunately, he's going to have to find an alternative. So, however brutal that sounds, I'm only saying that out of the greater good because I want our children to have a nice planet to grow up on. So I looked into this, and if you look at takeaway coffees, every single year we use collectively on the planet 16 billion takeaway coffee cups. So what impact is that having? First and foremost is, let's look at financial. I'm going to say and be very, very generous that it's $2 for a cup of coffee. Some places it's $5, $7, we know this, but say $2 for a takeaway coffee, which is extremely generous on the low side. So that would equate to $32 billion a year on takeaway coffee. It's probably more than that if you incorporate the fact of the matter that some places charge $5, $6, $7, etc. So you've got this huge sum of money that's being used on takeaway coffee, which if everyone didn't have the takeaway coffee, it wouldn't kill them. It wouldn't, and it wouldn't kill anyone. It wouldn't affect them in a bad way. They might feel a little bit discomfort from their withdrawal. So what can you do with that amount of money? Well, funnily enough, the number that's required to end world hunger is $30 billion a year. But they say they can't locate that amount of money on the planet. Of course, we know this is nonsense. We know that the resources exist, otherwise they wouldn't be able to shoot hundreds of billions of dollars of missiles at places, but never be able to come up with the money for food. But I'm just giving an example of if we're going to have some leaders who actually have some backbone and some balls about them and actually start leading the world away from corporate interest, then you could easily say, these resources are not being well spent, let's ban takeaway coffee. I would do it, genuinely, if I was in charge of, if I was a US president, I'd say I'm banning takeaway coffee. There's no need for it. Bring a cup from home if you want takeaway, and at the very least, just drink a coffee at home or at your office. You don't have to do this anymore, and I'm sorry, big corporations. Of course, that'll create a huge legal problem, but it's a necessity for the planet's longevity. So, even financially, aside from the fact, as I always say, one takeaway coffee a week will put a child in child labour into school, then on the collective side, it's enough takeaway coffee that we don't have to do. We choose out of desire. We don't have to do it. It's enough to end world hunger every single year just on takeaway coffee alone. Now, what about the waste that's caused and the destruction that's caused from that? Well, coffee in itself, obviously, coffee plantations clear a lot of land. Sugar plantations, which many people use, clear a lot of land. If you're taking milk in there, you've just then contributed to the number one destruction of the planet, which is grain-fed animal agriculture. It is the number one industry which is destroying the planet. So you've got habitat destruction for the coffee beans, you've got habitat destruction for the sugar, and then you've got immense habitat destruction as well for the sake of getting or acquiring the milk if you are drinking a non-vegan option. Even if you're drinking a vegan option, you've got immense habitat destruction to produce almond milk, for example, so on and so forth. You've got monocrops to produce oat milk. So it's still, there's no easy way around it. It's better to reject the concept than to try to buy some more environmentally friendly version of a takeaway coffee, because it doesn't exist. You might get one that's a little bit better, but it's not that much better. Refusal is key to helping the planet at this stage. So you've got those elements of habitat destruction. What about the cup? The cup in itself is actually not paper. It's plastic and paper. And I don't mean there's a plastic lid. Take that aside, the composite of the cup is plastic and paper. That spells disaster, because that means that we cannot recycle them. That's another problem that we have with coffee cups. Mixtures can't be separated, thus they can't be recycled correctly. Even worse if you're using polystyrene. Now then you've got that and the plastic lid. Of course some will be recycled, but the vast majority are definitely not recycled. So you have immeasurable damage to the planet for tens of thousands of years from all of the plastic created to do it. Let's not mention all of the packaging that the sugars come in, plastic foil, so on and so forth. It's just an endless, unnecessary burden on Mother Earth to sell a take-away coffee. Absolutely endless, unnecessary burden. So you've got, economically, on a planet where people are really, really struggling, you've got a means to end world hunger by banning takeaway coffee purchases and putting that money somewhere else. You have the eradication of 16 billion more, tens of billions of plastic items, including stirring sticks and so on and so forth, and the sugar packets, etc., that need to be recycled or end up in landfills. You've then, on top of all of that, got the habitat destruction from the milk, the coffee and the sugar. All of that is based on the fact that humans are buying a coffee not out of necessity. They're doing it out of consumers' convenience and a non-utilitarian need. It's actually hedonic, for all it's a very vague hedonic thing to do that. Now, I'm not here to bash and say don't drink coffee. People like to drink coffee, it's fine. I'll say you'll be better off without it. I will say that, health-wise as well, 100%. You just need sleep, adequate nutrition and exercise. That's how you get the best alertness in your body, not caffeine, without any shadow of a doubt. If you can make half an hour for a run on a morning, you'll be better later at work for all that run, even if you think that sounds counterintuitive. Caffeine won't do that for you. It'll mask the fact you're tired. So, if we all actually maturely take a deep breath and look at simply the example of a coffee cup, we can see that a takeaway coffee is bought for a simple reason: to fulfill a pleasure or to quench an addiction, ultimately an addiction to caffeine. That's why it happens. Or it's from habituation because we're used to doing it. Or, of course, it's just the fact that we're consumers and that's part of our everyday routine and we don't think consciously of the impact it's having. But if you realize those things, and then you realize the immeasurable waste of resources behind the beginning point, which is that human desire as you walk down the street of your local town, city or village to go and buy that takeaway coffee. And if you realize then the only way to change all of that, to have all of that knock-on effect changed forever, is to change the individual who's starting out with that desire. Because by changing the individual that starts out with that desire, you eradicate the demand for 16 billion disposable cups, you eradicate the demand for the lids, eradicate the demand for all that milk, you eradicate the unnecessary financial burden on people, paying overpriced amounts for things on the street, etc. And you can re-channel those resources to somewhere where they are really, truly needed. Now, I'm sure there's even more impact beyond there that a cup of coffee has. But I'm just covering those basics to show very importantly and very clearly that it is us and our ability to be conscious and our ability to think about what we're doing and our ability to vote for the way the system goes with every single purchase we make. And it is thus, every single morning, the responsibility of every individual on this planet to protect it and to save it. And if you have just gone vegan and you're still drinking tons of takeaway coffees and looking down your nose at the person eating the burger, it's not enough. And it's time to mature, it's time to grow up, it's time to start doing what you can do at the absolute maximum to protect the planet, which is ultimately zero waste living. And eventually, when that catches on, the demand will alter the industries we face. There's no reason to go to a supermarket and everyone have individual plastic packaging. There should be one big plastic package and you should bring your own glass containers and fill up what you want. If you want to buy something as unhealthy as tomato ketchup, there's a big dispenser and you dispense it into your own container. That's how it should be, package free. But we don't. We're selling convenience. But now Mother Earth can't bear the burden of our need for convenience. It can't bear the burden of our laziness any longer. It needs us to change the way our culture works. And I know that it can happen, because right now I'm in the middle of helping implement a plastic bag ban here in Tanzania. So it can happen. Governments can change. Ideas, habituated behaviours can change. But it starts individually every single morning when you wake up and you say, today I'm going to tread as carefully as I can and be as conscious as possible of everything I do that harms this planet, or everything I do which wastes the precious materials that I am entrusted with in my life to feed my children and myself. God bless, guys. Let me know what you think about my idea of banning takeaway coffee. Will not be met with a lot of applause by many people, but I just want it to be a working example to show that it really is all about human desire, human habituation, human behavior that's going to protect the planet. The question is, how do you alter that behavior? Do you do it with legislation outside of the person, or do you do it by changing the person internally with meditation, etc.? I actually think a happy medium of both is probably the way forth. God bless, guys. Bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps us to grow the channel and with it help more children here in Tanzania. Also, don't forget you can support our work by sharing with children in crisis here. be it sharing for a particular need or even sharing one-on-one support for education, housing, food and medical care. It can be done for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week back in the West after all. Just visit www.sharetanzania.co.uk to find out more. Lastly, remember you can also support us via Patreon, www.patreon.com/featherstail, and help keep us here in Tanzania to continue our work. The links for the website and for the Patreon are in the description box of this video. Love and light, guys. See you soon.